Okay, hello everyone. We're down to our last two meetings for the fall semester. As I'm sure you all know, next meeting, next Monday, the 12th, I sent an email with all the details and instructions about how the test is going to be given. I actually will repeat that in today's lecture after we finish the 4 more new slides that we still have to do. You want to stick around because that's when we cut the list down by at least 40, maybe 50%, and the study list of terms to know down also by at least a third. And that'll help you also. You don't have to waste time studying slides that aren't even possibly going to be on the exam. Okay, so let's do that whole thing about describing the test in the same way I did when I sent you the email, but I'll repeat it and take any questions, of course, that you have at that point. But a couple of quick announcements and we'll get started with the first of the 4 remaining new slides. I think open enrollment, according to a couple of my current students, 1 or 2 of them are repeat students, so I'm sure they know the procedure. I haven't memorized it, is either tomorrow or Friday, the 8th or the 9th. So if you're thinking, I'm not just on classes I'm teaching, which I'd love to have some of you in, they're all in person. And the thing about that is it does make it easier, I think, to take the test because you'll get a hard copy of the test and you fill it out. And you have, if you do a special arrangement, you of course then get time and a half so that things don't get lost. Things have been happening that way a lot with these 4 semesters now I've been teaching online. I like it in some ways. Of course, it's easier for me. I live in Berkeley, although I'm in Santa Rosa now, right in the office at the Anley Hall. So the point is all the classes that I teach and most of the other art history lecture classes, as well as other humanity lecture classes, will be in person. I've been told by the department chair that 2/3 of them, not just in art. So if you're thinking of taking a class, those could fill up. It's hard to predict depending on the subject. You should probably, log in and find out by Friday if you have the time before final exams take all your energy. Because some classes do fill up early, especially the drawing in person, of course, drawing and studio classes. The second thing is just if you feel, and if and only if, this is no bearing on your grade in this class, that you did learn something valuable from this or even maybe enjoyed some aspect of the weeks of lectures we've shared together, it helps your fellow students to file a review. And of course, if it's a negative review, that's fine. You don't have to worry because it's all anonymous. You probably know on ratemyprofessor.com. And it just gives students who are thinking of what class to take and what departments from any subject matter, doesn't matter, not just art and art history, good useful information from fellow students. Many of you have used ratemyprofessor.com. So keep that in mind. If you're going to do that, you should probably do it before Christmas when students are trying to decide what class to take. And then the last announcement is, oops, no, then I let him in. Welcome. We didn't start the slides yet, so you didn't miss anything. Just the last announcement is extra credit options continue through the end of final exams week, which means that this would be for this semester, a Saturday the 17th by midnight. And I will send you an email to remind you of that. But I think I need to clarify, 1 or 2 people have the option or wanted to get credit, I should say, and sent me an email with a photo or image screenshot of the first few pages of my novel, 1 or both of them. That's not the assignment. That's free. And not only is it free, you don't even have to do anything, but just take a photo of the actual website first page of any given book. If you don't know this, it's free to read the first 3 chapters of every book on Amazon Kindle, every book, at least the ones that have been there more than a month. I think it takes them a month to say. It's called Look Inside. So that doesn't prove that you downloaded it. You don't have to read the whole thing to get the credit or any part of it necessarily, but you do need, these are the 2 requirements, and we'll get started with the first slide. If you want the 15 points, you need to download and either send me a screenshot of the last chapter, first page of the last chapter. It'll be obvious that you didn't get that, just from their website. A or B, your order number, and then that's 15 points. And if you choose to write a review, good, bad, or in between, automatically, if you file it again on Amazon Kindle, specifically same website where those two novels are, I'll send an email reminding you of all the options for extra credit, all of them, including this one. But that then gives you, if you want to write a review, whatever it says, once it's posted, you get 10 more points for either one or both of the two novels. Okay, and so any urgent questions about extra credit? I think I've answered more. Don't forget the museums are a really good way to get extra credit. And so you could show up at a museum as late as Friday the 16th, or I suppose on Saturday the 17th, and shoot me, but before midnight, please, so I don't have to worry about, late arrivals. Extra credit takes me only a few minutes to log in. I can't grade papers. Remember the deadline. I've gotten one or two, but I don't have everyone who has yet to turn in their research paper from either of the two classes. I still have a handful who haven't. The deadline's midnight Friday. I can't accept things during final exams week. That's in the syllabus. It's also pretty much a department policy. We have way too much to do as teachers. I know you guys are busy final exams week, but so are we teachers, if not more so, because once your last test's done, you're done. Our work begins, or it continues. Of course, in grading all the tests and getting the grades calculated and submitted, all before they moved up the deadline by 6 days this semester to 2 days before New Year's. So we need to have all of the late work in by the end of this week. Okay, so any urgent questions from anybody? Let's see, I think I've let everybody in that's in the waiting room, right? Probably get one or two more. All right, let's get started with the remaining slides. And this first one is a very moving image, if you know from, just to make sure you can you see this, you guys? It says I'm screen sharing, just make sure. Can everybody see this? Yes?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. All right, yeah. All right, whoa, jumps knows to do that. All right, this is the next lesson. We have just 4 more to do, and then we'll do the overview, I should say, really, of the final. Okay, the artist's name, some of you already know, Warhol, one of the most famous artists of the 20th century. Of course, his first name was Andy, right? Warhol, W-A-R-H-O-L. The title, Gold, Maryland. I think everybody can spell those words, 2 words, Gold, Maryland. 1962. Well, let's start with who was Andy Warhol. He was the most famous pop artist of all time. There's no other way to put it. No one would debate that fact. The most famous pop, that's capital P-O-P, and we're not talking about pop music, although the words have some similarity, the meanings. I mean, sorry, the word is spelled the same, but pop music is a slightly different category of art. So we're talking about visual arts, and that could be painting, drawing, photography, or sculpture, that take objects from mass-produced American culture. This is American movement, right? And I gave this definition. If you didn't see it, you can when I post on by Friday at 8 p.m. the last two lectures, from the one from Monday where we talked about John's 3 flags. That was the last slide we saw on Monday. He was a pop artist, but even more famous is Andy Warhol. You take objects or images from mass-produced popular culture and show them in a different way, or portray them differently than most people would see them. And you do that to convey some kind of comment, a social comment on popular culture. So what are we looking at here? The specific image. Well, it's obvious from the title, and I would think from the image itself that this is a touched or retouched, I'd say touched up. There we go, touched up or altered, you would say altered, photo of Marilyn Monroe's face. But it's done by Andy Warhol's new method. He created, well, you can't say he created, let's say he popularized this medium of painting, silkscreen painting. I mean, it probably was around before he started in the 50s. He was doing this stuff that far back when pop art was just getting started. And he became the most famous pop artist. Usually he did actual paintings or photos reproduced by the dozens of famous people like Elvis Presley, and let's see, I can't even remember. So Elizabeth Taylor, actors, actresses, singers, but not always. Sometimes he took, quite often actually, he would take objects like SOS pads, for cleaning. I don't know if any of you ever done dishes in large kitchens, but I've done that when I worked at McDonald's. Yeah, you end up having to use some kind of a heavy duty Brillo pad or whatever they're called these days. I don't know. These are objects that are called, or Coca-Cola or tomato soup cans. That was the most famous one he did. His first famous one was of dozens of images or a single large image with the colors altered. He usually altered the colors of what the original photo would have been. And then he used silkscreen to produce a painting. So this is called Gold Marilyn for two reasons. Besides an image of her face, obviously there in the middle, he touched up her hair in this artificially yellow color because it's a black and white photo that he's adding his own colors to. So he made, she wasn't a blonde. You probably, if people don't know that, you should write that. That's part of his commentary, that she chose to disguise herself in a way, you could say disguise or alter her appearance, if you prefer to say it that way, in order to get work in Hollywood. And of course it worked. She became the most famous star, female star, at least in all of Hollywood during her lifetime, at least while she was alive. And some would say even now, today, her movies are still quite popular. But he did a couple other things. He emphasized the red around her lips, which again is, of course, just makeup that you would see any actor or certainly actress use in almost every movie role, unless they were playing someone who didn't have makeup. But she almost always played, glamorous roles. Not always, but usually. And then the part that really affects people's reaction to this image, and it affected mine and my grandmother's in a way I'll tell you in a minute, is the blue, the touch of blue around her eyes. Not so much on the scarf, but it balances out the blue above her eyes. Look carefully and you can see a look, an expression on her face of obvious, sadness is the easiest word to use, but I would even go deeper than that. Disillusionment and disappointment, because she never found happiness. You don't have to know the Elton John song, and you don't have to write that in your notes. That famous one about Candle in the Wind, which of course he also sang at Diana's funeral, about Marilyn Monroe. But without even knowing that, not only that song, but much about her, if you didn't already, you should write this. She was never happy. She had 4 marriages, all of them ended in divorce, very short marriages, not more than a couple of years or so each. Never found happiness and committed suicide at the age of 36. And that's what this picture evokes, is her death, her early and tragic death, because of the way she felt she was being, what she was, marketed as a commodity. They knew each other. They weren't close friends, but they certainly had met. Marilyn Monroe spent time in New York when she was married to the most famous playwright in New York, Arthur Miller. And Andy Warhol, of course, was in New York. I mean, that's where his studio was, and that's where he created all his art, where he lived. So they at least had met, but he admired her as an actress, but also her courage in trying to, deal with this whole commoditization, product, making a human being into a kind of a mass-produced product. Images of her were, of course, all over the world by the time she died. The last thing I'll say about the meaning is, this is the photo that was on the cover of Life magazine. No, I take it back. It wasn't. It was inside the magazine. It's a photo that was used in the article announcing her death. I already mentioned this to you if you didn't know. Life magazine was a monstrous, huge media influence, the largest circulation English language publication in the history of the world. And it doesn't exist anymore because of the internet, of course, but it was immensely influential. And she was a popular, of course, actress, so she had many articles during her career about her. But when she died, there was a picture of her on the cover. I think I recall my grandmother subscribed, and I was at her house when she picked it up and started crying. My grandmother started crying. She really liked Marilyn Monroe, and she could relate to her feeling about being, alone in many ways, because she had a husband who had died many, many years earlier. So my grandmother was alone, was a widow. And when she saw that picture, and she didn't even have to open it to know what it said, because she didn't, I don't think she even had a TV, as I recall, didn't know Marilyn Monroe had died. It was a few days after she died. It just said Marilyn, 1926 to 1962, were the years of her birth and death. And immediately, of course, anyone who saw that would know that meant there's announcing her death, and it's a requiem. The article was a long article about her career, her influence, her popularity, but it did her no good. She was gone, died of her own hand of an overdose, drug overdose. So he's capturing the sadness and the alienation and disillusionment is a good word. I would use that word in her eyes, in her expression, by emphasizing that aspect with the blue, the touch of blue. It's a brilliant little detail, as well as the exaggerated public persona she had, because she was a natural brunette, not a blonde, by exaggerating the yellow hair, painting it yellow around her. And then the final fact of the meaning is the whole thing's an icon. He's making an icon out of her. Remember, we covered this with The Kiss by Klimt. It's an important part of the meaning. Why did he do that? Gold is the color of icons. Remember what icons are? I think we covered that. If not, then you should write it. Icons are sacred images from religious, figures. Or holy, sorry, I meant holy figures from various religions. There we go. An icon is usually Christian, but it doesn't have to be. And so he's not saying that she deserves to be worshipped like, a saint or a goddess per se, but he is saying that's what the society did, was put her up on a pedestal as though she were some kind of an icon. And then visually she was, symbolically she was, but she didn't feel that way. It didn't make her happy, obviously. Okay, so that's a pretty powerful message. And this photo, this painting was very popular when it came out. It was reproduced many different places. And I think he made more copies of it and different versions of it later. But this was done right before she died. And I imagine when it came out, it was very shortly before, or if not right after, she had committed suicide. Okay, formal analysis. Almost entirely warm, an unnatural yellow, and even the pink on her skin tones are not unnatural colors, but they are warm, of course, along with the red of the lipstick. And then, of course, the teeth obviously would be cool, and the blue, touches of blue. It's balanced, roughly centered, roughly balanced. Maybe she's a little closer to the top than the bottom, barely. So you could make the case it is slightly unbalanced toward the top, but I don't think when you look at it that that's what people see. They pretty much think of it as she's in the middle, and she's definitely balanced left to right. There's a single mass in just her head and neck. The only technique for space is overlapping of her scarf over her neck. I guess you could say her hair over her scalp. And then we do have modeling because it's a photo. It's done from an actual, black and white photo. So there is the modeling around the chin and the cheeks, of course, a little bit around the eyes, and there's implied texture. Well, the hair has simulated texture because remember, this is ink. This is ink taken from a photo on silkscreen. So it's simulated texture, and mostly I'd say the hair. I don't really see too much, maybe the eyelashes and lips, but the rest is implied, the skin and the scarf. There's not much texture there. But there's no altered or distorted proportion here. And remember, with scale, you have to have two or more objects side by side, so there's no aspect of altered scale at all. It's stable, primarily stable, although she in her life and her emotions were not. Her head and neck are straight upright, and she's looking directly at us. So the only things dynamic are, of course, the top of her head there, with the hair itself and the eyebrows and the lips. Much more stable than dynamic. The rhythm is obvious: the two eyes, two eyebrows, the hair. And the line here is soft and diffused. There's no line for outline. So it's just the edges of the different colors against side by side that create visual line. So it's visual line actually, and not outline, no outline. Okay, hang on. Breathing some kind of dust in this from the sculpture studio right next door to this room I'm in. Hang on. Okay, now it's fully functioning again. All right, this one is the next must know, De Kooning. It's two words. He was Dutch. His last name is a capital D-E and then capital K-O-O-N-I-N-G. The title is Woman 2, and it's Roman numeral 2. So again, that's two words, Woman 2, and the date is 1952. So first of all, who was de Kooning? He was an abstract expressionist, and he was a friend of Jackson Pollock. They knew each other and spent time socializing. They didn't just were acquaintances or colleague or fellow artists who were aware of each other. They actually were friends. De Kooning lived to be nearly 100. He was not a chronic depressive. He may or may not have had a period of alcoholism. Who knows? Because so many artists drank too much. But from what I've read, no, he definitely had a happy family life. He had children. That's an important detail when we talk about the meaning and the controversy over this image. So he became, I think you could say, yes, it's safe, the second most famous abstract expressionist in America after Pollock. Pollock was clearly the most famous. We already covered him, remember, on Monday. So were they rivals? Yeah, friendly rivals. But de Kooning did use some figurative images. So we can see, if we look closely, let's get a little larger here, that this is a woman sitting down with her hands or arms, you could say, across her lap, and bare shoulders. So she's wearing some kind of an evening gown, maybe getting ready to go out. In fact, I think he was interviewed about this painting, and I recall him saying, yeah, you could say it's a woman about to go out for the evening with her husband or boyfriend. And yet what's not realistic, of course, first of all, the setting, we don't know where she's indoor or outdoor. From looking at it, you can't tell anything other than that it's the upper part of a woman's body with very, very minimal, lines used. We'll get to the formal elements, of course, in a couple of minutes, to indicate arms, two arms, breasts, of course, shoulders, and the head. But look at the face. That's where the controversy came in. He was interviewed about this more than once or twice, and he had to defend it because a lot of people said, you're saying women are two-faced, they're evil, they're demons, they hide their true evil nature under the mask. No, he wasn't saying that. He said all human beings, men, women, younger, older, from whatever ethnic or cultural background, whatever country, all human beings have more than one side to their personality. And one of those sides might easily be something that is not pleasant, we'll just say. I was going to say evil. Whoa, wow, thing jumps around a lot. Let's get back to the full image. There we go. Okay, so what are we looking at? A woman about to go out on the evening with her, let's say husband, because I think he said that. And she looks, like an abstract version of a woman, so we can tell most of where the body parts are, but they're distorted. There's lots of unrealistic detail we'll get to in the formal elements in a minute. But the big point about this painting is, why did he depict her as having an evil, demonic face? Was he trying to say women in general were like that, two-faced, right? Or dishonest, or hiding their evil inner self? He not only pushed back against that, he was happily married. He had at least one, I think two daughters, who never said that he had that attitude toward them or the mother or other female friends. And the proof that that's a false criticism is that he also had a series of male figures with the same kind of demonic face and called them man one or man two, man three. So if he was just, being a misogynist and criticizing women in general, then it would have become obvious, at some point. Either people who knew him would say, yes, he's like that, or he wouldn't have done that series of other paintings of men with the same kind of features. So that's pretty much the whole meaning. The thing is, he did continue to do, even all the way through his career, like I say, he lived into his 90s, semi-figurative, but so did Picasso. Remember, Picasso was the first abstract painter, but his images, you can tell, remember the Damoiselle d'Avignon. So there's distortions, but still recognizable parts of real objects in or figures of human beings in both Picasso's work and de Kooning's, but not in Jackson Pollock. He was a more pure abstract expressionist, but this qualifies as abstract expressionist. So he's expressing the fact that, anyone, including an adult woman, could have an unhappy or even evil underside, or some kind of, dark side is the phrase used, that is within all of us, the good and the bad, the, light and the dark. And, so he's not picking on any one group of human beings. Okay, so formal analysis, well, this is totally dynamic, not a straight line in it. We do have some bold outline here, just around the shoulders, I would say. Maybe a little bit around the top of the dress, because it'd be the top part of her dress. I don't know if I say a couple of the fingers, yeah. So you could say some bold outline, excuse me, I said I meant to just, yeah, there we go. There is some on the hands, but not the arms, the shoulders, the hands, and the top of her dress. Otherwise, the lines are soft and diffused. And let's get back to here. And of course, the colors are on the woman's body, and most of the background are cool. There is some yellow on either side of her head, of course, and we don't know what that is. What is that, a curtain or wallpaper? But the only thing warm is her dress, which is kind of a light pinkish or salmon color. The rhythm is obvious, even though it's not very distinct or defined. There's some hints of fingers and two shoulders, of course, and then two eyes. But there is no simulated texture, not even implied, I would say, none, either way, implied or realistic, none, no simulated texture. And I don't see much modeling, very, very little. For space, there's only the overlapping of her arms over her dress and her dress over her body. There's no other technique for space. There is distorted proportions here. Her arms and shoulders, such as we can see them, right? Even though the arms don't have outlines. And even her hands are extra, let's say, unrealistically large or enlarged, distorted by being deliberately larger than they would be for a normal adult woman. Maybe her head's a little smaller. To me, it doesn't seem like it's, it looks like she's wearing a mask over what might be her real face. It's hard to tell because you can't see what's behind it. Or she's taking her mask off. You can see it either way, but either way, I don't think the head is as large as it's just, it's actually abnormally small. So there's distortion of proportion for sure in this one. She's the largest mass. I don't see any other objects, really the only mass. It's roughly balanced with her in the middle, but technically there's a little more open space to the left of her shoulder on the left edge. So you can say it's slightly unbalanced toward the right. And if you draw the line down the middle of her waist, it's roughly balanced top to bottom, I would say. And I would say it's totally dynamic, right? And we covered the colors, right? Okay. Next one. I may have cut this. Yeah, I did. New Shoes for Age, it's called. It's a photorealism. Sorry, I think we're just, it's not on so, and we want to get to the review. So let's not cut this, let's move beyond here. This one I'm not cutting from the study list. Well, I might when we do the review, but I think I'm going to keep it. It's very rich with meaning. Second to the last new slide for this semester, second from the bottom of week 17. It's Bartlett is the artist, Bartlett, Bartlett, Water. Just one word, water. Water is the title of this. Okay. Okay. I'm just doing the mute in case we have a problem with this. Hang on, every time I do this, it causes this slight distortion or disruption. All right. So Bartlett, Water, 1990. Well, I think you can already see that this is not a simple little pastoral landscape with a little pond, right, or stream, or the edge of a river or a lake. It's much more dark and intense, the meaning of this. But first of all, who is she? I admire her greatly. I'm pretty sure she's still alive. Her name was Jennifer Bartlett. She's a postmodern painter. Now, I didn't put that on the list of terms, so you won't see it on the, definition section, the true false section, right, of the final. But you should know in relation to this slide, if it's on this slide, is on the exam. Postmodern is a movement of painting which reintroduced, I'll say it slowly repeated, which reintroduced a variety of colors, textures, forms, right? And that's, oh, whoops, we have got 1%. Now we're getting up to our, okay. All right, so I'll say it again. It's a style of painting, postmodern painting, which late 20th century, I should say that, because it didn't exist before about 1985 or so. So I'll just say late 20th century style of painting, which reintroduced a variety of textures, forms, colors, and colors, and various symbols from past cultures, various symbols or symbolic detailing from past cultures. Well, this does all of that. And so what are the details here that tell us the meaning? Well, we know what the meaning is because she's a very well-respected artist. Probably never heard of her, but I didn't either before I started teaching it, but I've been following her career since my first year teaching her. Her works are all over the world. They're on the walls of the Volvo, as in the automobile company headquarters in Switzerland. They're on UNESCO's headquarters in Paris. I've seen them in Paris, France, not Texas. And they're on all kinds of corporate and institutional buildings, large paintings on the wall, or even murals. So she's that successful. And her paintings, individual paintings like this one, easel paintings, right, have been bought by collectors all over the world. And so she's an underrated but very successful postmodern American painter. She's American, though I think she lives in Europe. But anyway, so this, what is going on here? Well, you can see there's a skeleton floating up to the surface, or is it across the top of this? Well, the whole thing is a juxtaposition, that's the only word to use, of images which do have a powerful moral message, which taken together, I'll say it again, this is a juxtaposition of various images, including at least one from an historic past, and that's the red box. We'll say what that means in a minute. So just say it's a juxtaposition of various images, including one from a historical past, a story, or myth from the past, which taken together create a very powerful moral message. Well, what could that be? Well, we don't have to guess. She explained it, but looking at it, you might get a clue. First of all, you have playing cards over here, right? Playing cards for gambling. Then you have mahjong tiles, also often used for gambling. And then you have Pandora's box. If you don't know what that is, that's an ancient Greek myth about an ancient Greek minor goddess, I guess, someone who was named Pandora, just like the name sounds, a female, a Greek mythical figure, who accidentally let all the evil in the world out of a box that had been contained in by the major Greek gods. Told her, don't open the box. And she opened it, and out flew, war, poverty, racism, plagues, drought, famine, all the evils that plague the human race. But out of the bottom of the box, there was one little creature left, hope, like Tinkerbell in, the Disney cartoon, I can remember, Peter Pan, in Peter Pan, if you know that, or the original story, of course, is even more influential, where there is, a little kind of fairy, that's the word, that flies around and gives people hope. Well, that's hope. That's supposed to be what the only positive things that the gods left in the box after all the evil came out. So that's Pandora's box. So when you put that together with its skeleton obviously implying the death of a human being, and you look at the setting, at first you'd think, well, this is what's the word, a nod, there we go, a nod to, or inspired, you could say inspired by Monet's water lily paintings. We already talked about Monet, of course, in detail. So the water lilies over the pond, and it is a pond, not a seashore or something like that where the water is calm, would be a peaceful, positive, happy image. But a dead, a skeleton, it's redundant to say dead skeleton, floating by as you sit there, and you're maybe out for a picnic. This looks like, a folded up picnic blanket, in plaid pattern. And then maybe this is some kind of a drinking cup, right? And that could be a picnic basket as much as easily as it could be what we know the artist told us it was supposed to symbolize that myth of Pandora's box. But it also could be a box in which you brought your food to a picnic. So what's the underlying message? That addictions such as gambling and any other kind of addictive behavior, such as alcoholism, drug addiction, or even violent, anger management issues, whatever, all kinds of addictive behavior that might come from, not well thought out, right, patterns of human beings who become addicted to whatever it is, whether it's gambling, again, or unsafe sex, right? She talked about this, so I'm not putting words in her mouth, or any kind of substance abuse, alcohol or drugs, can lead you to end up looking like this guy here, rather thin. In other words, they can be deadly. So there is the hope, though, and the hope is the two crosses. She's a Christian, by the way, not born again, fundamentalist type, but she believes in God, monotheism, right, a single God. And she's saying that if you have that, it doesn't matter which belief you have, any kind of higher power, if you believe in some form of religion or higher power, and you let that help you get over or resist these addictions, you'll survive. You'll be better off. You'll even overcome them. It's a very powerful message. And this painting was sold for millions of dollars many years ago. What year? Now, yeah, but over 30 years ago, to a private collector who may himself or herself, I'm not sure who bought it, I think it was anonymous, have overcome some of their own addictions. Now, my last little comment on this is why a skeleton, 2/3 of it, almost as though it bubbled up from below, from like the mud, that it might have been a buried body. Well, it's not only a myth, but I just say the famous media, storyline in which the mafia or some other mob is involved in killing their rivals and burying their bodies, weighing their bodies down and throwing them into the river or whatever. Well, that could be where she got the idea for this. But in any case, we know it's symbolic of the risks of addictive behavior, self-destructive addictions with an ADT, of course, which can lead to a fatal result unless you control them. And you might need a higher power or belief in a higher power. Anybody that's been to AA, I've never joined, I didn't need to, but I've had friends who did, and I went with them. You know what that is, right? They tell you have to have a belief in a higher power. You'll never get over your alcoholic addictions. So it's a pretty powerful message. And this is the last part of the meaning now for this work, is that it's one of a series of 4 paintings which are all about, again, ancient mythology. The Greeks believed there were 4 elements: earth, fire, water, and air. You probably know that if you ever studied Greek mythology or history or art culture. We took art 1.1, which I'll be teaching next semester. They believed there were 4 elements. Of course, they didn't have scientific knowledge of atoms and molecules. So they just thought everything in the universe, not just on Earth, is made out of earth, fire, water, or air. So she painted one of each of those elements with a different moral message. But this is the one that got the most positive response. And like I said, got a wealthy collector to bid and buy it for their own personal collection. Okay, so let's do the formal elements. Well, the cement texture here is pretty good, but it's soft and diffused on the box, on the skeleton, and on the water lilies. I don't even know if you could say that it's implied texture on the water, right? The purplish blue colors, but it's pretty good cement texture on the plaid. I'll call it fabric or picnic, blanket folded over. She did several versions of this, by the way, after selling the original version, and some of them have much larger picnic-like blankets visible, so you can just call it a portion of picnic blanket in the bottom lower corner. So those, and the cup too, have realistic cement texture, but it's soft and diffused on the water and on the water lilies themselves, and I think on the cup too. Okay, then we have the rhythm, of course, of the water lilies, of the 2. They look like almost like snowflake patterns, but they're both, especially this one is supposed to symbolize a Christian cross that she, as again was saying, for her, that's what helped her perhaps overcome. I don't know if she had personally in her own life addictive issues, but you see the rhythms, of course, everywhere on the mahjong titles, the playing tiles, the playing cards, the plaid pattern here, the bones of the skeleton. The colors are warm on the skeleton, the two crosses, and the picnic basket / Pandora's box. Cool on the water lilies, the pond, and the tiles and the playing cards and the cup. It has overlapping and foreshortening. At least foreshortening is visible. I don't know if you see it on the skull, but certainly on the picnic basket or box. And overlapping, of course, of the other all the objects above the water. As though they're floating just above the surface of the pond. The lines here, that's harder to say because I see some, yes, outline, but it's soft and diffused. Whether you call that bold or thin, I leave that to you. But I don't see any line on this leg and someone here. So there's some limited, just say very in the cup. Yeah, there's some. So I think of it as just diffuse line, neither thick, neither thick nor bold. Bold nor thin. I'm sorry, neither bold nor thin outline, except on the picnic basket. There, I think you can say that's bold outline, just on that one object. The largest mass, the pond, I guess you'd have to say, then the skeleton. And then it's a close call, probably the picnic basket, including the lid, would be the third largest. For space, I think I already said overlapping, right? And foreshortening, I don't think there's any other, no, there's no diminishing size. Obviously, no other techniques like scientific perspective are used here. The rhythm is obvious. I mentioned, oh, is it stable dynamic? Well, the only things stable, I would say, are the playing cards and the mahjong titles. Everything else is at a diagonal or with curved lines, although you could say the two crosses somewhat, but then that's still diagonal and there's curved lines at the edge of this other cross. I think they're also maybe a little bit stable, but it's overall primarily a very dynamic work of art. And I already mentioned, oh, modeling. Yeah, here there is modeling on the skeleton and the cup. I don't see modeling anywhere else, not really, because when you look at this, there's not really any modeling and none very noticeable on that picnic basket either. So it's limited modeling, and that is soft and diffused, the modeling. No altered proportion, unless you want to say the skeleton is too large for the picnic basket. You could say it looks deliberately enlarged, in which case that would be scale, not proportion. It would be an altered proportion to emphasize the deadly results of addiction or addictive behavior. Let's see, are we forgetting anything? I think we've covered it, texture modeling. So we have one more must know. And this is really an interesting one. Okay, Ofili is the artist name. He's a British African artist, born in Nigeria. Ofili, O-F-I-L-I, his last name. The title is Holy, 3 words, Holy Virgin Mary. Say again, Holy with 1 L, Virgin Mary, 1996. I mentioned this work of art to you the first night of class when we discussed what is art. I mentioned it's all part of the meeting now. So I'll say it slowly, but you should be taking notes. It's the last slide you need to take notes on, which is the fact that this was in part of an exhibit of British artists, avant-garde, or if you're from Indiana, avant-garde, right, don't ask me to spell it, 2 words, French for cutting edge. You can say cutting edge artist in Britain in the 1990s, who had an exhibit in London that caused the same kind of scandal that it did in New York. When it came to New York, it caused the then mayor of New York City. You don't have to write his name, but if you want to, it's Rudolph Giuliani, right? Got to be pretty infamous after the 2020 election. But back then he was a respected mayor of New York City. He objected to this painting because he said it was disrespectful of all Christians and particularly devout Catholics like him, because it's Mary, mother of Jesus, which is not, the fact that she's Black is not the issue. No, New York, that wasn't an issue by the 1990s. No, that's not what anyone objected to. It's the dried elephant dung that stuck pieces of it to different parts. I think it's only 2, actually. Now you look at the rest, it's all painted, to her body. So she has the blue color that all Madonnas are shown as, right? This is a Madonna, of course, an African Madonna. And he was the artist, Chris O'Feely. He's still very popular. His paintings are, there's a couple of them at the Museum of Modern Art in San Francisco, actually. Um, anyway, the point is that this was a controversial image because of the dried elephant dung pieces, as you can say, 2 or more pieces, that were stuck to her body here. Well, why did he do that? The artist was born and raised Catholic. He was not being disrespectful. He explained all this. He had to go give, I think he had to give a press conference or an interview, at least an interview, let's just say, where he explained this. He says, no, no, no. In Nigerian Christian culture, half of Nigeria is Muslim and half is Christian. So he came from the Christian part, and he moved when he was a kid with his family to London. So he was a citizen of Great Britain, born in Nigeria, and raised as a Catholic. That's an important point, because he was not coming from the outside and mocking another group's beliefs. He wasn't doing that. He was saying that in Nigeria, in folk culture, say that fast, dried elephant dung is symbolic of the cycle of life, the renewal of life, and that's exactly what the original meaning of Madonnas are, that she willingly accepted the death of her son Jesus. So according to the Bible, people could have, quote, eternal life. I mean, they could be, go to heaven and be born into a new life after death. So it's not only not disrespectful, it's just the opposite. It's a tradition of actual respect for her role, Mary. What Giuliani didn't do his homework when he started criticizing and threatening to close that exhibit down because of this and a couple other paintings he didn't like. And he didn't succeed. The state Supreme Court of New York told him to back off. That was censorship. Just because he didn't like a few of the works of art, he had no right to pull. He couldn't close the museum down, but he could pull their funding. About a third of it came from the city. And that's enough to force them to close for at least several months. So he did not, he was told he couldn't do that. It was against free speech. And the artist, because of that controversy, Chris, his first name, O'Feely, became much more well-known, more famous, and his work became more popular. And so he, talked truth to power. There we go. You could write it that way. Telling the mayor of New York, you don't know what you're talking about when you're criticizing this, is somehow insulting to the entire Christian faith, and particularly the Catholics. Is the opposite. I didn't mean disrespect at all, but it was a culturally traditional image that is known to be respectful, actually, of the role of Mary as the mother of Jesus. There we go. And this is, of course, postmodern painting, because the textures, varieties include actual elephant dung. So this is a postmodern painting. It has some recognizable images from, of course, about 2,000 years ago, supposedly, right? The time frame in which Jesus and Mary lived. So it's got that past cultural image, historical image, and then textures, of course, and the forms and the colors, a very high variety. So let's do the form analysis, and then we'll do the review for the final. It's balanced. I like the way it's balanced, but you could make the case, because of course all human bodies get narrow as they go towards the shoulder, neck, and head. So you could say, depending on where you draw the line, that it's unbalanced toward the bottom, but balanced left to right. I think it's only one mass. I don't see any other. Unless you want to break it down into the actual dried elephant dung pieces, then you could say she's the largest mass, and then the dried elephant dung. If you want to break that way, I see it as a single mass. For space, there is only overlapping. Her blue or royal, that's the color of royalty, right? In Western art, blue robes always. Mary's shown after she gave birth to Jesus as the Queen of Heaven and wears blue in every painting since the Middle Ages of her. So here she is with the royal blue color, of course, and that gown overlaps her body. And I guess you say the elephant dung overlaps the darker colored robes underneath the blue. And there is bold outline here, though it's done in colors rather than dark, not black, right? But that's clearly bold all the way around her face. The rhythm is obvious with the different images of different flowers, is what some people think they are. Others think that they're just, some strange geometric shapes. But clearly there is the rhythm of her robes, her eyes, right? And that would be her hair behind her neck there. And yes, the 2 pieces of elephant dung, though they're not the same exact shape. So there's lots of repeated shapes. There is implied texture, but no simulated texture. There is the real texture of the elephant dung. Otherwise, it's all paint on the canvas. So there is implied texture, but no real simulated texture. I don't see any modeling, none. Is there a distorted proportion? You'd have to say so, because if it's supposed to be her whole body, her head and neck would be too large compared to the rest of her torso and her legs. So she'd be too short. She seems to have been altered the proportion of her lower body to be too short for the size of her head. So that is a distorted proportion. Remember, not scale, because there's only one object. Colors: cool on the robe, warm on her face, hair, and the undergarments below the blue robe, and on the background. It's almost a gold kind of a color. And then these are purple, most of these objects. I don't even know what they are exactly, so we'll just say various geometric objects or shapes around her. Those are mostly cool. Let's see, balance, rhythm, space. I think I just said the only technique is overlapping. There is no other, there's no foreshortening or any other technique for space. Okay, so there we go. We've covered all of the new slides. So here we go. I'm going to stop the share, and now we're going to do the review portion. Let's do it this way. First, flip all the way back to, now the midterm, because it covers everything after the first, sorry, the final, I apologize. The final covers everything after the first midterm. So you have to go all the way back. It'll take us a little time here, which is, the midterm was, wow, I forget how early I gave the midterm. Yeah, wow, in September. I was thinking it was October. Okay, so from September 28th until today, there's only one way to do this. We did this before the first midterm. We're going to count the number of slides, and then I'm going to cut that by at least 40%, probably 50%. But I have to count the total before we do the cutting to get to that figure, obviously. So you want to do it with me, go ahead. All right, it'll take a couple minutes. Almost there. 124. Well, I'm going to make it a 50% cut because, yeah, I want to cut down as much as possible so that, remember, what will happen is you'll have 8 slides, 5, just like with the first midterm, 5 just straight IDs, which you could just look at the syllabus. Obviously, it's open book and open note, and write what you see there. You do have to spell the words correctly, the titles, right, and the artist's last name. There'll be 5 of those, and then 3 where you analyze the meaning and the formal element, just like you did on the first midterm. So let's go now. Everyone, please follow along. Go together. I will do this all the way through and then repeat the list at the end, and then we'll do the same for the list of terms, and then that'll take us right to about 4:15. I'll stick around for any questions. All right, everybody, you have open to the page for week 7. All right, we're going to cut a whole bunch of slides here. Okay, we're going to cut Khatib, the second one down under week 7, September 28th, right? Cross off Khatib Minar, okay? And then let's see, Kunduz Minaret Mosque from Indonesia. And then I'm going to cut Akbar inspecting the construction, the third one down under September 20th. Akbar inspecting the construction of Fatehpur Sikar. Oh, it's hard to say that. Such a long title. I would give you a break on that regardless. So let's see how we're doing. When we get to the end, we may need to cut a few more. go one more time to get to the half. What's half of 124? That is 62. So I'll probably cut it down to an even 60 if I can do that. All right, the next one, Ming Dynasty flask. Cut that one. Yingbang Mountains from China. Cut that one. And the Poet on a Mountain's top. Cut that one. So that's 3. I'll repeat these all at the end before we do the same thing for the list of terms. It won't take that long because that's not that long list. Okay, moving on to the next page where it says October 5th, landscape, Munsai. Fusuma, the 4th one down. Fusuma equal to, that's a Japanese tea room. Lacquer box, Bangkok, cut that one. Okay. And I'm going to cut Otani Onju Oniji acting. Okay. That's so now we're trying to cut at least roughly half from each category so that we get to the 50% at least at the end. All right, moving on to week 9. Lama from Bolivia. I'm going to cut Templo Mayor because the slide of it is, not very detailed. It's a drawing. Yeah. Okay. Not that it's not important, but Templo Mayor from Mexico City, cross it out. Oh boy, this is hard to see. We're going to cut Taos Pueblo, New Mexico because it's a black and white photo. And the Miwok village, even though I think it's very interesting, it would be harder to find if you're trying to create, I don't know if anybody's doing this to create your own flashcards, because it's not in the textbook, right? Obviously, it's something my own slide. So Miwok village from Nevada. Okay. We might need to cut at least one more. Bandolier bag from Kansas. Cross that out. Okay. Moving on to week 10. Carved figure from storehouse doorway. Extremely long title there. And decorated building. Again, the longest ones I tend to cut just for the sake of not having to have so much to write or remember. So 3rd from the bottom is decorated building world compound in Congo. And then, boy, this is a hard one. Let's see, at least one more. I think that Spirit Spouse is such an interesting meaning, and Palace Door was very rich in detail. So let's cut Reliquary Guardian from Gabon. Right, moving on to week 11. Virgilie Brun, Marie Antoinette, and her children. Cross that one out. David, we're going to cut, let's see, one of the two. I forget which one is in your textbook, but if there's an image you need to study is not in your textbook when you're doing your study for the exam, you'll be able to find them any of these online on any, search on Google art website. Okay, so let's do The Death of Marat, 1793. Okay, moving on. Oh, wait a minute. Cut that last one. Oh, Villers, Girl at her easel, because that's not in your textbook. Villers at the bottom of where it says week 11. Next page, we still have several more from week 11. Friedrich Monastery Graveyard in the Snow. Delacroix, The Massacre at Chios. Blake, I hate to do it, but we got to cut half of these. Blake, Newton Measuring the Universe. For now, we'll leave the last 2. Week 12. Hunt, The Awakening Conscience. Cross that out. Renoir, Luncheon of the Boating Party. Cross that out. Degas, The Glass of Absinthe. Cross that out. Monet, Rouen Cathedral Portal, cross that out. And Rodin, let's see. I think I'll leave The Kiss and cross off The Thinker. We're still gonna have to cut more, I can tell, but let's keep going and see how many we have when we get to the last week. Week 13, all right. Cézanne, Mont Saint Victoire, cross that out. Van Gogh, I hate to cut one of them, but I kind of have to. We'll cut Wheatfield with cypress trees. Okay. Gauguin, cut Day of the God. And we should cut at least one more. Oh boy, this is hard. Well, for now, I got to leave at least one of all those really major post-impressionist painters. Okay, we're on to week 14, so we'll try to cut more out of the next 3 weeks than half. So we get to that total of 50%. Okay. I hate to cut it, but Paxton, the Crystal Palace, because it was a black and white photo. Gimard, I don't know if we even covered Paris Metro Station, cross that off. Macintosh, Glasgow School of Art, cross that off. Wright, Falling Water, cross that off. Maybach, Palace of Fine Arts, cross that off. And Morgan, Administration Building at Asilomar, the last one under week 14. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'm gonna cut one more. I hate to do it, but I'm going to cut Klimt the kiss. There's several kisses and that could be confusing, right? So we'll just leave the one from Rodin under that same title. Okay, week 15. Le Corbusier, Villas Savoy, cross that out. Mies van der Rohe and Johnson, the Seagram Building, cross that out. Graves, Portland Services Building, cross that out. Then among photography, Casimir, Blessed Art Thou Among Women. Stieglitz, I think it was a different image anyway. Winter on Fifth Avenue, cross that out. Lang, Migrant Mother, we didn't get to that. Adams, Moonrise over New York, cross that out. Let's see, I think we need at least one more. Okay, Reese, Bandit's Roost, cross that out. All right, down to the last 2 weeks, under week 16. Matisse, The Joy of Living, cross that out. I'd be only one by each artist that's left on the study list. So if we move to the next page. Picasso, The Old Guitarist, cross that out. Mark, The Large Blue Horses, cross that out. I'm going to give you a break. Kandinsky, Accented Corners, number 247. Again, that's a very long title. Okay, Clay, Twittering Machine, cross that out. Oh, I don't want to cut too much else. Well, I'm going to cut out Mondrian's composition with red, blue, and yellow because there isn't a lot of formal elements on that one to analyze. So I'll just shape some colors. Okay, now we're down to last week. Okay. I hate to do this. Rothko, orange and yellow, because she's did so many different colors. We're going to cut off John's Three Flags. De Kooning, Woman 2. I guess I'll cut out Bartlett Water. So let's see, what have we done? Have we got to 60 or even 62 total? Starting going back all the way. So follow me along here because I think we still have to cut a handful more to get to that 50% reduction. Okay. We have to cut 6 more. And I think I already know which ones we do. Okay, so everyone do this one more time and then I'll repeat the whole list once because we do want to not go too long. I might go to 420 because it's important, but at that point I need to stop the review process and just take questions if you have them. Okay, so everyone look one more time, go back to week 7. And I think because it's such a long, well, I'm going to cut Jahangir and Shah Abbas. Okay, we have to cut 6 more. Let's see. Stupa. I think I need to leave stores. Okay, so that's 1. And then we have okay, on the next one for October, week 8, on the top of the page, cut off Himeji Castle. Himeji Castle. Okay. So that's 2. We need 4 more. Boy, this is hard. Okay. Well, I'm going to cut because the 2 are similar and the words could be confusing. Under week 10, that will be the 3rd one, Maui ancestor figures from Easter Island. Okay, we need to cut 3 more. Week 11. Constable the Wayne, second from the last under at the top of the page under week 11. Okay, week 12, 2 more. Boy, that's a hard one. Well, we can do the one. Let's move on to week 14. Okay. I'm going to cut Monk the Scream. I know I hate doing that, but there we go. 1 more and we'll be at the 50%. Okay, Sarin and TWA terminal under week 15. Okay, I'm going to repeat these all once, and then we'll do the same with the list of terms, and then we'll be done with the overview of the exam, and we'll take questions after that. Okay, so everybody follow along with me. Let's do this one slowly. I'll do it week by week. Under week 7, right, where it says September 28th, you cut 4. Khatib Minar, Akbar inspecting construction of Fatehpur Sikri, Jahangir and Shah Abbas, and the Kunduz Minaret Mosque from Indonesia. Okay, week 8. 8, quite a few. Ming Dynasty flask, poet on a mountaintop from China, Gingbang Mountains, next page. Landscape by Brunsai, Himeji Castle, Osaka, Fusuma, Itukai, a lacquer box by Korin, and Otani Oniji acting. Week 9, 5, Templo Mayor from Mexico City, Lama from Bolivia, Bandolier Bag from Kansas, Taos Pueblo from New Mexico, and Miwok Village from Nevada. Week 10, 4, car figure from Storehouse Doorway, Maui ancestor figures, Easter Island, decorated building, World Compound, Republic of Congo, and lastly, Reliquary Garden from Gabon. Week 11, 7, you're cutting Virginie Lebrun Marie Antoinette with her children, didn't have the year anyway there. David, Death of Marat, Villers, Girl at Her Easel, Lake, Newton Measuring the Universe, Friedrich, Monastery Graveyard in the Snow, Delacroix, The Massacre at Chios, and Constable, The Hayway. Okay, week 12, 5, Hunt, The Awakening Conscience, Degas, The Glass of Absinthe, Renoir, Luncheon of the Boating Party, Monet, Rouen Cathedral, Portal, and Rodin, The Thinker. Week 13, 3, Cézanne, Mont Saint Victoire, Van Gogh, Wheatfield with cypress trees, and Gauguin, Day of the God. All right, week 14, quite a few. 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, Munch, The Scream, Klimt, The Kiss, Paxton, The Crystal Palace, Gimard, Paris Metro Station, Mackintosh, Glasgow School of Art, Wright, Falling Water, Maybeck, Palace of Fine Arts, and Morgan Administration Building at Asilomar. Okay, week 15. 9. The Corbusier Villa Savoy, Mies van der Rohe and Johnson's Seagram Building, Saarinen TWA Terminal, Graves, Portland Services Building, Reese, Bandits Roost, Casimir, Blessed Art Thou Among Women, Steiglitz, Winter on Fifth Avenue, Lang, Migrant Mother, and Adams, Moonrise, Hernandez, New Mexico. Okay, week 16. Matisse, The Joy of Living, Picasso, The Old Guitarist, Mark, The Large Blue Horses, Kandinsky, Accented Corners, number 247, Clay, Twittering Machine, and Mondrian, Composition with Red, Blue, and Yellow. Week 17, 4 more, Rothko, Orange and Yellow, Johns, Three Flags, De Kooning, Woman 2, and Bartlett, Water. Okay, let's take out your list of terms to know, and it shouldn't take that long to do this. There's nowhere near as many, but there are a number at the minute. We will reduce by at least a third. So let's go back to where the first terms after the first midterm, count how many there are. Put that list down. Okay. Yeah. So how many are there? Let's count. Starting with Gopura on the second page, right? And then Minaret, 1, 2, 3, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Remember the list count as 1, entry 22, 23, 26. So a third of that would be at least 9. Yeah, that would cut it down. Two more by more than a third. Okay, so everyone do this and then we'll be finished with this process. Okay, go back to where you see the Gupura and Minaret. Okay, so we got to cut a third of each. So we're going to cut, let's see, Minaret, Mogul. Okay, to get to a third, a little more than a third, 9, we have to get to, so that would mean 7 more. Okay, so you see that on the first page, you're cutting to Minaret and Mogul. In the next page, Pagoda. Okay. Mayan bloodletting ritual. Neoclassicism. Okay. So we've got 5. You have to cut 4 more. Okay. Synthetism. Let's see. Moving on to the next page. Abstract expressionism, cut that. And pointillism, I think that'll bring it to 9. Let's double check. Pointillism is at the top of the second to last page. So let's see how many we've got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have to cut 1 more. English realism. Okay, I'll say it again 1 more time and then we'll stop the recording and just take questions. Okay, on the first page of this half, the second half, starting with Gupura on the first page below, second one down from Gupura, cross off minaret and then mogul near the bottom. Moving on the next page, cross off for pagoda, Mayan bloodletting ritual, neoclassicism, and English realism. The next page, cross off to pointillism and synthetism. And on the last page, cross off abstract expressionism. Well, we're actually about where we would normally end. Okay, so I'll just say this before I stop the recording, because I know there's still people that haven't logged on, and they're going to depend on the recording, that the lecture, this lecture and the one Monday are recorded. They will be posted by 8 p.m. Friday. By Saturday at the latest, by 8 p.m. or sooner probably, I will have posted the test itself. It's the same as with that first midterm, where you download it. It's a PDF, as all documents have to be at this college. It's a basic requirement so that they're the maximum accessibility. And of course, you have to submit your finished final exam as a PDF. So you can either download them, print them out, and hand write your answers. Please print, don't use cursive. If anyone still uses cursive, it's harder to read, and use black ink, because then you could just use a screen. I'll repeat this at the start of the test. You can make screenshots and then put them together. Make sure that you get all of the words on each page into each of the screenshots, and then put them together into a PDF and forward them to me. Or you could do it all online, of course, as a doc, some kind of a document, and make sure you convert that to a PDF. You have until midnight to submit them to me. There's a cutoff, and there is not being recorded, the test, so you need to attend in real time. The only exceptions are some kind of unavoidable emergency that you have written evidence of, and I have to see that right away if that happens. But it shouldn't happen to anybody, because at least hopefully everyone's safe at home with the slight surge in COVID we've been hearing about. And so you will have open book, open note, and use an ink pen if you're writing it, your answers out, or obviously typing them out as neatly as possible. And then you have extra time. Once the test is over, the first slide will hit the screen at 3:15 on Monday the 12th, right? You will have an hour, and it's only a 50-minute exam, so an hour and 20 minutes is time and a half of actual on-screen time. And then I will log off. That'll be the last time you see me, and remind you at the end, you have till midnight to submit your PDF of your answers for your exam, for your final. And the grades will be submitted by January 2nd, I think, or 3rd. I mean, you'll be able to see them, your final, but which you can email me for the grade on your test or your final course grade. But I'm not going to even work on them. Well, I'll start working on them for Christmas, but mostly it'll be the week after Christmas that I get the grades back from my readers and do my own parts that I grade of my, and all the extra credit, and all of that takes time. So give me until after New Year's Eve if you have a question, or you want me to email you with the grade you got in the course, and of course I can tell you what grade you got on the final. Okay, I've pretty much answered all the main questions, and you know how to study and what to study and what not to study. So any urgent questions anyone has, I'll take a minute or a couple minutes to answer. Anybody have any questions now? We've covered, I think, everything we needed to for you to be prepared, be able to study properly for this exam. So good luck to all of you. I do want to say I enjoyed this class very much. Participation, comments, questions, additional anecdotes that related to the slides. It doesn't affect your grade either way. You can get an A without saying a word, but it's nice when a group, some students in each group does do that and adds to all of our knowledge. So if I hope I will see some of you in person in real life in one of my 3 or 1.1, well, you already took 1.2 or 2.3 classes in the spring semester on the main campus. Okay, anybody? Last questions, last opportunity for that. Well, I'll also stick around at the end of the final to answer questions as well. All right, you guys, have a good weekend. You'll see the test posted by Saturday and these lectures posted by the end of the day on Friday. And good luck with the studying and everything. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.